have our Tantric channels in human design. So this is another thing you kind of hear about a little bit in passing, and we've kind of mentioned it in the past couple of months in different in the circuitry and the channels and whatnot. So I'm really excited to dive into these 3 channels and get into this Tantric energy.
The Tantra of it all. So the Tantra used to be the format channels, because back in the 7th-centered being, they didn't quite act as fully format channels. They were different. They were command channels. And the Tantra was down there, which means basically our sexuality in the 7th-centered being essentially was adrenalized business, not aware, and certainly not with a direction per se.
Thank you everyone who's watching, and let's dive into it. So the Tantric channels, these are the 3 channels that go from the sacral center to the identity center. Tantric channels are fertile life forces of sacral vitality, empowering the identity in a specific direction and the expression of the higher self through the G center. Tantric, not in the sexual sense of the word, but as in transmuting the raw sacral energy into a higher form, empowering the sense of self and direction. This is transformative, creative, life force energy toward identity and purpose.
Absolutely. And the driving of the purpose is what happens when we move in a direction that encompasses more communion, the 9-centered way, that has more aesthetic, money isn't everything, valuable abundance and beauty. That's what it's after. That is truly what it's after. And it starts with this whole process is foundationalized with money isn't everything. It just is. Because when you look at these channels, you treat them as their own separate Tantra, but then you also recognize it is part of the Penta, no matter how you want to slice it and dice it. So you also allow yourself to look at it as in all the stuff drains down from the 15 and the 6 and bubble through the 529 and bubbles up through the 14 too. That is a process inside these 3 channels when you take them together.
Wait.
Do you want to
re-explain that? Because the 15-5, the 214, and the 46-29, but what is that you were just saying with the up and down?
Because these 3 channels make up the bottom generative portion of the Penta, and the Penta is everywhere, right? The Penta is one of our prime organizing forces. It keeps us together a certain way. So you do look at all these channels independently as you're reading for one being, of course, but you can't help but to understand that in the Penta, the way the energy flows is up through 14 too.
Okay.
So you put a little break at 46 as if it's like a little stopping point, like it only can travel down the 29 up the 14, and the 15 can only travel down the rhythm and fix that pattern and boom up through the 14. They create a fountain.
So it's
Period.
okay.
Yes.
I've never known that. So
Yep.
It's doing this, what my little cursor is doing. I had no idea. That's super cool.
And then 2, what does 2 do? Whoosh, up and out the Sphinx. Yep.
That just blew my mind, Danny.
That's the trident. That's why 2 is the monopole. 2 is the seat of the driver, the steering wheel, the stick shift, the direction, the maps, all of it. It's just waiting for people to press the buttons. Press button 7. Okay, into the future we go. Press button 1. Okay, into the now we go. It's the DeLorean. Press button 13. Back we go. Back to the future.
Wow.
Wow, is right. Yeah, it's cool.
You just blew my mind. I was like, I don't even know what to say. That just blew my mind. That's super cool.
Yay. So Tantra, why is this Tantra? Because we're in love with loving ourselves in a direction, navigating those extremes if we have to, and we're there because we always have to. And then on the quick step, having the abundant workingness together that generates a direction, and that direction is what gate 2 is keynoted with. It's keynoted with the natural brilliance that just can't even be defined. That's one of its foundational keynotes. The next foundational keynote, I'm gonna crack open my book so I don't get it wrong. A genius, natural, unconscious, unknowable, and then intuition, sensitivity to disharmony of any type of atrophy that gets in the way of beauty. Don't you take this not seriously. We're in a hurry. Chop, chop. Don't you atrophy on me. Don't you bring disharmony into here. We're traveling down the road at 74 exactly, so we don't get a 10-mile over that speed ticket, 10 miles over the 65-mile speed. We're staying right there. Don't interrupt that. Don't bring disharmony into this thing. And for God's sakes, don't tell me you got to take a bathroom break. We're not stopping. That's what 2 wants to do, if it can help it. Because on the other side is the burn, right? Or the thing, whatever it is. It's the thing that's just so gorgeous, and it wants that beauty. And it wants its individual sense of the pulse of it, and it wants its special story that made so much meaning out of the experience, and it wants its army to marshal through to make dang sure the thing takes place in the first place, happens into the future, that we can all understand, so we can explain along the way in case we need to make an adjustment away from disharmony and atrophy. So the Tantra here is beauty, and the Tantra in our bodies, as it relates to what we understand Tantra to be in one sense, is partly our sexuality. You can never untether sexuality from the sacral. I mean, what you can untether from it a little bit is all that juicy emotional aspect that makes it all juicy, and the yearning, and all the movies are made about it, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, the emotional solar plex adds emotional clarity and meaning to all of that. But this has plenty of meaning all on its own, because when humanity is in a direction towards more beauty and more communion, and it's in love with itself and its body, and it's embracing the extremes and setting patterns and saying yes, 14's abundance is just like 55's abundance. It comes through. It's not on a wave. It doesn't have to stop. 55's abundance will sooner or later turn back to gain more knowledge. 14 never needs stop. It can sustain. If that direction is good, why not take it for 50 years right in a row, non-stop, full bore? We're not in an emotional wave. We're in a direction towards beauty. So I say the Tantra here puts 2 bodies together with a higher spiritual sense. And so the Tantra isn't just penetration like when it was before, but it absolutely can include that. The Tantra is beauty, however defined. And we all know it when we see it, by the way. I never met a couple that was wicked happy together that couldn't look at each other and know exactly what the other was talking about, right? That beauty that they contained in that now for them. So that part of that Tantra is there. It's all of it. Yeah, it's mutative too, obviously.
Here we have the 515, which is part of collective logical circuitry, goes up the splenic side. The 515 is the channel of rhythm and the design of being in the flow. This is the universal rhythm channel, which is tying humanity to nature. The 515 is thriving on consistency while adapting to extremes, creating harmony in chaotic environments, aligning the individual with the natural flow of life, surrendering to the rhythm of existence.
That is so much. And at the very end, I surrender. 5 and 15 must surrender to each other, right? 15 is extremes, and it must surrender to the pattern or it will die. And 5 is the pattern, and it must surrender to the extremes or it will atrophy, right? One leads to death, one leads to atrophy, and then death. Take your pick. No good either way. And so they must surrender. And these whole thriving on consistency and adapting to the extremes, the extreme is part of the consistency. What happens in Tantra when you get into what the channel is called, the channel of rhythm for a reason, it brings rhythm no matter where it goes. And it's got a magnetic aura. This is called the magnetic aura channel. It creates a double wide aura. You just need gate 15 for a double wide aura. Gate 15 in a defined center, if that G center is defined, then that double wide aura is strong. If you have the whole channel, it envelops the room. It literally is there to create a rhythm for all of life. So the Tantra is obvious. We're in a rhythm. And it's so funny that this is part of the logical circuitry. So it makes sense we're here in a rhythm, sweetie. The Tantra is very yummy. Let's explore this more. So mating as a logical process, and Tantra as an exalted activity that need not contain mating of any kind at all, that simply embraces the sharing of the extremes being molded into patterns, finding a direction. as part of the vessel of love that empowers direction through the Sphinx in the first place. So I love this particular tantra. So you got any, can you add anything to that? Just like, because it's not just, it's again, it's not the first tantra. This is right. This is an exalted, higher purpose that includes intimacy as its strong potential.
Yeah, it feels very, it's a flow of life. It's the rhythm of life. It's like the drum beat. It's the
Yes.
pattern and the pattern break.
Yep.
It's like, it almost reminds me, it's like when I was in massage school and learning how to do massage, where it's like you do the same thing a couple times and then you switch it up a little bit. You do the same thing a couple times to kind of ease somebody into the flow, and then you switch it up to keep it interesting, to not get it, too repetitive, too redundant. You can't just have the 5 all the time because it's the consistency and it would just be monotonous. And the
Mm-hmm.
15 would be too much everything changing of the rhythm, but that natural flow of life is the rhythm and the rhythm break and
Yeah.
getting into a new rhythm, or like a DJ, like a really good DJ is playing one song while he's mixing in another song, and there's a little bit of both, and you have
A
the
rhythm break.
pattern and you have the
That's an
rhythm break.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept to add into this. It says the higher purpose, the tantra of sharing the process that contains joy. So the tantra of sharing the focused process of joy, right? I mean, that's a legitimate keynote here more than is itself. What was the word you said? What, I lost track.
The rhythm break.
Yeah, rhythm break is it is itself breaks and then re-rhythmizes itself. Get a quick rhythm break. That's an organizing feature of this particular process. Because you're right, there is a rhythm break. It feels that way to me. I have the whole channel, and it feels that way to me plenty of times. There's a little pause, sort of like 40 says, the point of liberation, except this is the point of pause. And so then the tantra of this becomes an exalted love of humanity that fits into a pattern, and the pattern is consistent. It consistently fits into a acceptable, logical, joyful pattern. That's what we're supposed to be. That's the memo. I hope people get it. Okay, send it along to all the foreign heads of state, please. Right? That's the memo. And now I want to gate 14 to it and tell them, chop, chop, hurry up. We don't got all day here.
Well, we'll get to
So
that
that,
one next.
well, we will, but last thing about the Tantra as it relates to between two, where it can absolutely have components and aspects and beautiful portions of this intimacy that two can have, right? That really only happens there. This Tantra is willing to sit in the rhythm forever, potentially. No need to leave. Why leave the rhythm? The baby is like, why are you spitting me out? It's only been 9 months, man. Can I stay a little longer?
I'm not
Why
done
am I?
cooking yet.
I'm not done cooking. Why am I going to leave the rhythm? You know what I mean? And they prove it. They come out screaming and crying. They look pissed to me.
I mean, it is a thing that humans are supposed to be gestated longer, but they're born early because women's bodies could not hold them for longer without it like harming them.
Oh,
So yeah, children are actually, like, all humans are actually technically born premature because they
a
would
little premature. Well,
ideally require a longer gestation, but the female pelvis like wouldn't
that sounds extreme,
function.
and it sounds like it fits a pattern regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And life darn well continues. This guarantees life. And so you can sit in this rhythm for as long as an amoeba can float on the top of a still stream. No rule. Stay there forever. So this one says the Tantra can go on for hours. In a way, you can put it that way. And that would be rather extreme. That's an extreme pattern, but it's available here.
Next up, we have the 214, which is part of individual knowing circuitry. The 214 is the channel of the beat and the design of being a keeper of the keys. This is fertile power, resource creation, plus intuitive direction. Mutative energy turning ideas into material success. These are natural leaders responding to opportunities, aligning with their unique path, inspiring others through action.
Action is the key term. It really is, because it's the root of all action. And as the gate number 2 says, right? I mean, isn't the heading receptivity as the primal, isn't it? Say something like primal root of all action. Something like that. Do you have the book?
Yeah, I'm going to double check it right now.
Receptivity as the primal base through which any response is determined. The root of action. Yep. So this is the opposite of 15:4, 15:5. This is chop, 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 let's hurry. Do you get the joke?
Huh.
It's not my joke. I didn't make it, but it's there. I mean, it's funny. It is funny. By the way, do you know any 14:2s?
Yeah, my boyfriend has the 14 too. He's an amazing worker and get it done, and everyone wants to hire him
Yes,
because he's going to
everyone
do it and
wants
get
to
it done and
hire
make it
him.
good. Yeah.
Absolutely. They can't help it. They see him as that. And it wouldn't matter if he had that fifth line, although it helps, but there's a natural genius in two that can't be described. It's as creative as one. It's just that one is the yang version of creation. I did this. And two is the receptivity of this may be. But in this may be, it's let's hurry up because this may be, And 14 says, I bring the work towards it. And as a Tantra, it can be not in the rhythm for hours. It might only be in the pulse for moments. There's nothing wrong with that. There's yin and yang going on here. And the actual work that gets done is always towards a greater future. Ultimately, all it wants to do is ultimately empower and imbue with creativity and direction the contribution when you finally get to manifestation in the throat. That's all this thing wants to do. It wants to serve its master and come to order. And then it wants to do the thing and make the contribution in the most creative, expedient, structured way possible. Now, And so again, when you get to the Tantra of, let's say, two people trying to explore each other, the Tantra will take place quickly. They'll see the thing. You know what I mean? They might be able to move on and do something else. And so it's an exalted place because why should you have to wait forever to pick a direction? It says receptivity, by the way, is conditioned by a response. It's not conditioned by anything else. Look, it's all nestled in there like a womb. Two sits there protected by everything. Can't get no ego at that thing. Can't get nothing. Nothing touches it. Right? It's surrounded by guards and columns, 15 and 46 and 29 and 5. You can't, and 14 even. You can't have me. I'm gate 2, and I'm conditioned solely by the response that's fed by 29 and 5 through 14 up to 2. There's a lot of response juice going on there. So it's no wonder it happens quickly.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say about that.
Powerful stuff. Good stuff.
But Tantra, what does Tantra really mean? What is Tantra? Like the word all by itself?
It can go into like more of the sexual kind of thing.
I have a feeling most will point towards that when this is really a shared, empowered togetherness. That's what the Tantra is supposed to be. When it was just in the root to the sacral, it was just different. The flavor was totally different. Not the same thing. Did you find a good def?
I got Tantra Sanskrit, literally means loom, warp, weave. Warp as in like the weave of a fabric. There's like the warp and the weft. So to intertwine. Okay. So weaving, I think, is the really good one there. According to Padu, the verbal root tan means to extend, to spread, to spin out, weave, display, put forth, and compose. Therefore, by extension, it also can mean system, doctrine, or work.
Well, 14 is part of this. 14 is the gate of work, essentially, along with gate 40. But
yeah, so weave, extend, spin, display, doctrine, work.
Wow. I don't quite know how to put all that in, synthesize all that into here, but the weaving of a process together, it's always about together. Tantra doesn't quite happen alone. I guess it could in some ways. It probably does.
Well, weaving something alone, I guess if you're like crocheting or knitting or something like that. But I think the idea is that melding of the opposing energies weaving together.
Well, Right. And why wouldn't it be? It's shared on both sides with the experience and the pattern.
Well, even like the way, let's say you said how it like goes down and then up,
Hmm.
that intertwining, that weaving, because we're
Yep.
talking, just overall the word tantra, that weaving, that melding, which also makes sense with talking
Yeah.
the root and the head and ajna centers, because they start off on the one side and then they cross over when they go to
Yep.
the next one. So that idea of how our energy fields are
Weave.
interweaving
They interweave. Yep.
and melding together and blending, and like there's movement, there's not just like stagnation and straight. It's like when you think of like the orbit, right? Like the moon goes around the earth and the earth goes around the sun, you're like, oh, that's cool, like those planets. But then when you realize that the sun and our solar system is also moving within the galaxy, and the galaxy has its own orbits, and you keep zooming
Yep.
out further and further, and
Yep.
everything is this like beautiful intertwined
And we
dance.
get
And
out all the way, the universe itself might be orbiting something else. You just don't know.
yeah, everything is in its own orbit and its own movement and its own beautiful flow. So I think this would be like the micro zoom in version of that in a sense.
So the weaving of the process of sharing and empowering a direction and empowering each other that is creative and self-fulfilling and communes with the other, meaning gets along, it accepts, it loves the other through this is very much the vessel of love and the Sphinx. That's what this is. And it says, I share this two collective channels. And I understand that I share this. It's going to tell a story and yield a result. That's what those two collective channels do. So I
Cool.
get the tantra as weaving, and 14 and 2 says we're doing the work. Where the direction is the weave. So it does need the other. Essentially, the tantra needs you need two or more for the human tantra to really take off. Someone's going to argue me on that. I have the tantra on my own with the discipline of this and the discipline. Maybe you do. I don't know, but I'm just saying this lends itself to saying what I just said.
Well, even if somebody had the whole channel, it's still two different gates that are interweaving.
There you go.
Like,
There you go. Thanks, Moni. That's
you're welcome.
exactly true. Yeah. No, that's true. It got me right off the hook too. So now you can say whatever you want. Just what Moni said.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's continue on to our final tantric channel, the 4629, which is part of collective abstract circuitry, and it goes up solar plexus, so it's emotional. The 4629 is the channel of discovery and the design of succeeding where others fail. This is total commitment to experiences that resonates, leading to serendipitous discoveries that benefit the collective. 4629 as a tantric channel is driven by a resolute yes to life, processed through reflection on past experiences.
Total the past experiences. That's why it says yes, so it can get there. So 29, it's just a response. That it doesn't know. It shows up as the response to sustain at something. And so it's foundationalized as I have no idea. I've just been drafted, essentially. Its foundational line is called the draftee. And the draftee says, I said yes, we're in. No going back now. I'm not a deserter. If it can help it, it would like to stay with the experience. And 46 says, I am the body experiencing the power of your yes, 29. The Tantra here is very much the shared capacity to love the body saying yes. And that can very much be the Tantra of yes to one another, or the Tantra of yes independently as myself, but together with the other, right? Anything. This Tantra to weave can choose to enter the experience no matter what it is, because it's going to lead to a collective story that gets shared. It's going to lead to a way that's memorialized through the remembrance process and the putting it all together. And so the Tantra here just seems like it seems quite exalted. It's not out for a quickie. It doesn't have all that work to do to keep a rhythm. You know what I mean? It just is in the now. It lives the experiment. It lives the experience, and it need not be any one given thing. If 15 shows up with an extreme, the pattern's gonna have to be that one thing. You know, when 14 starts working, 2's got only that work to pick to make the direction. 46 need not choose, and 29 has no choice. It's the draftee. And the foundation of 46 is being discovered. It's just, I wasn't discovered, I'm discovered. The serendipity, the 46 is the definition of serendipity. That's part of its keynote. The good fortune and serendipity that makes it seem like you are in the right place at the right time. That was really the process and the product of dedication of events from before, where you can't know what they were until they show up. This is called the channel of discovery. So it sort of lends itself to a tantric type of meaning, and a sort of that feel of tantra very much would be here. We are discovering. So let's discover as a weave together. Let's weave together our discovery. Let's share that, and let's feel that in our bodies, deeply in our bodies. It's going to help the vessel of love drive the direction that pulls the body along with it.
It's really interesting with the 46. It's like that love of the body. It's the body in the right place, right? Because the identity center is that direction and where things are located in space. So the 46 is like the body being located in the correct space and doing the right things, even if you're doing the right things like way beforehand and you don't even realize that they're going to come in handy later. And
Right.
then all these weird skills that you've developed over some time all of a sudden pop in and appear to be very serendipitous, that like, wow, you're just lucky. You're in the right place. You just knew that. How did you know how to do that? Wow, you're just so good.
Yeah, and they didn't know to be in the right place. They'd had no idea. It's just that, and it can be anything, right? It could be any type of preparation that you didn't even know related. That's why it's called serendipity. Again, I love the Grosse Point Blank movie, if you've ever seen it, with a Mini Driver, and John Cusack is, and at the end when he finds out he gets to save her life, he just says, "Dumb luck," It's like that was serendipity. They even made a movie called Serendipity. That was a good one. Sort of a chick flick, but I liked it. I've watched it a bunch of times. It's the serendipity to be in the right place at the right time with the right people, shared as a commitment and a sustaining commitment. That sounds like Tantra and direction to me, towards beauty and love and communion, empowered, mutative, and unique.
And
Tantra is about being shared, mutative, unique, that can hold a pattern so it doesn't disorganize, and it can stay a Tantra.
speak a little bit about the devotion of 29.
I know all about the devotion of 29. You want to know
Cool.
why?
Because
Because I don't have it.
but you're chasing it.
I have chased it, absolutely. The devotional, it's so funny. I got 46. You do too, but I have that defined sacral. So it is calling to me. I want 29 often. I don't know it, but 29's devotion is in the foundational line called the draftee. It doesn't know it's being drafted until the response says, I commit. And the thing is, because the sacral is about sustain and sustaining and sustainment, I commit sustains. It's not the same expansiveness of 42 that wants diversity to maximize as much potential, completion as possible, or 9 focused and concentrated. It has nothing to really do with that, although it may focus and concentrate. It's just that I submit. I submit, and I commit, and I surrender to it. So if you have someone that surrenders to the commitment because they can't help it, and it was a response, if it was right for them, they can't help it. What would be the difference between that and feeling called? Not much. So they can't help it, and therein lies the nature of the perseverance. And the Chinese called it the deep within the deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
the
because it's the
abysmal.
abysmal, the abyss.
Well, no, they said abysmal because at times, the abyss is one way to look at it, because it just goes into the great expanse of an abyss.
Mm-hmm. It's
You don't
water
even
over
know,
water as the
yeah, and you
trigram.
don't even know where it ends. But the abysmal part does there too, because if it wasn't the right response, it was a not self open ego response, let's say, or whatever, the yes commits to that which is not right for the life. And the Tantra is absolutely lost. It's not there. It never shows up. You end up in the wrong place, and the serendipity becomes not, and that's no good. because serendipity is meant to become, not to become not and not there. So this perseverance of 29, when it commits to something, it can really bite onto it. And by the way, what's it conditioned by? 29 is conditioned by what format channel?
That would go in with the 42,
Yep.
53.
Yep.
So it's beginnings and endings.
Yep. Yep. 53 was foundationalized by not diversity, accumulation. Accumulate it more. So 29 is it's partly more, and partly stay with it. So it can't help but to be that way. Or it was a liar to itself and it generated a not self response, which it didn't generate. The brain told it that and it became not true. And then it becomes a great quitter. It doesn't guarantee perseverance. It guarantees one of two things: perseverance or quitting. And the quitting shouldn't be seen as quitting. It's just you didn't make a response you didn't allow yourself to respond. You let the mind get in the way. This channel would be very, very susceptible to the conditioning of the mind because it's just an unknown experience you got to be in the now for. So it's like that's so undefined, right? I mean, the not self of the mind may make the 14 do the wrong work because it thinks it has to, or it might make the 5 scaredly pick the wrong pattern to fix things too, and that leads to disaster. So I guess it gets to all of them, but to 29, it definitely gets to it for sure. So,
second question, what about having gate 29 defined on an undefined center? So Jonathan, who was here last week asking questions, he has like gate 29 like 3 times in undefined center because he's a projector. So how does like 29, this devotion of the sacral, but with an undefined sacral?
it means that over and over again, they get pinged by to 29 is sexy business. It's sort of doing something, like 14 is trying to do something. 5 isn't sexy business. You can't even tell until you recognize there's patterns. But 29, the commitment might be to the discovery of the Garden of Eden again. It's anything's possible, and the serendipity can lead to any magnificent place. And so it would, I mean, Jonathan, when he gets a handle on this, he would realize over and over again, I recognize as my projector self that when I do commit to a thing, I still need my rest in the middle of it all, right? And I need to do it as myself, but the commitment is joyful. I mean, it really shows up as something I do hunger for. He recognizes he hungers for the commitment. What he has to do is recognize I can't rely on forcing it. It's in an open center. I'm subject to the forces that format us and program us. We're in a program, folks. We're in a vast information feed, period. And so sometimes the information feed gives us a gate that connects it. And so have it. More often than not, it's the people that he's around and just the society around that then generates this channel of discovery experiential process. So he's a great guy to say yes to things that don't require 10, 14-hour days in a row. Don't do that. Commit to the thing that is right now. And then and let people know and recognize that that there's limitations on the pulse of how long you're going to stay in it if it's a physical thing. But if it's a life process, you'll stay in it your whole life. He can commit to various things. 29 will commit to values. It will commit to virtues. It'll commit to the wrong virtues potentially, but mostly it wants to commit to the higher self because ultimately 46 love of the body isn't just the love of the body, it's the love of the body that pushes up into the kingdom of heaven, essentially. That's its goal, and that's its end place, and that's its exaltation as part of the vessel of love. So 29 is a commitment to pushing upward.
That's cool. And then I have a final question comment from Jonathan. So he's the only one with the 29 in his family. So who's experiencing it. And then he asked, would he be experiencing this much if there's a 46 in his family Penta? So I'm guessing that there's nobody else in your family with the 46, but you have the 29?
Yeah.
Or
So with that there, no one else in, the experience you would be craving to start and commit to something that has a start to it. There's a hunger to start the commitment into a thing, a desire to have that mature into something, but no 20, no 46 to help apply the direction, to be the vessel that empowers the direction. So it will feel like I'm not getting out into the world experiencing enough. That's what that will feel like. Yet I want to, and I feel like I keep trying to commit to it, but the rest of the world isn't getting me out into the world. That's what that would feel like inside the family. And if you're not careful, it could lead to, blaming. You don't let me get out into the world, that type of thing could come out. Or you just recognize, no, we just don't always get out into the world as a family unit. So that way, when we do, it's all the better. Not like it's never, you know, mostly it's going to take place sooner or later.
We're going to wrap up our tantric channels, the 515, the 14.2, and the 29.46. Ignite the spark of life, channeling the sacral's creative vitality to the identity's love and direction. Gate 5's steady rhythms, Gate 14's abundant creativity, and Gate 29's devoted commitment. These channels weave passion, purpose, and connection into our being, aligning with their flow. We tap into the sacred dance of energy, fueling transformation and self-discovery. Honor your tantric channel's unique vitality. What spark will you unleash on your journey?
That's a good question. So this whole putting it all together, when I take the three channels of rhythm, the channel of the beat, the home of the driver, and I take the channel of discovery as our new tantra, it's just an exalted place compared to where we were as a seven-centered being. And we've already gotten a sort of handle on it. Humanity has already sort of recognized, hey, the tantra is more than just the old way type thing. So recognize that. It's still formatted by the format channels. It's not like they're not there. They're still adding the adrenalized assist in the mixing bowl of the sacral, right? Creating the vortex, a generated vortex of energy. This is settling out that vortex and settling out any of the ripples so that the rest of it moves through the rest of the body process as itself smoothly. This stuff is designed to bring a new smooth. There's a new sheriff in town. It's the identity tantra rather than the sacral root tantra. The first, the sacral root tantra was really interested in sex, essentially with some sexiness. Great, yay. And the identity tantra has sex as a component of the greater beauty, which encompasses everything and the commitment to everything, because the pattern protects all. And the abundance of the work says, take it all, load it up, extreme it all, and we're going to have this experience in a direction. So our tantra is just so much prettier than it was before, in my opinion, as the receptive yin of two demands receptivity as a primal force and the root of action to be receptive. Tantra is receptive now rather than active and penetrating. Receive your tantra with your partner, receive it in life, receive it when you're on your bicycle driving down the road or whatever. Receive the tantra that's always around. It is a beauty that is, I don't find any ugly in it.
It's like that interweaving of the creative life force with love and direction.
Period. It's just so beautiful when you put it that way. It makes it all make sense.
Perfect. Well, that was really fun.
God, I'm drained. I said that halfway through, didn't I?
Yeah, you've been talking a lot. You just kept going, and being a good energizer bunny, explaining all the format channels and the tantra channels and all this good stuff. So me and our audience can learn so much. Thank you, Danny.
Well, thank you, Moni. If it weren't for you, this wouldn't even be on. Moni provides the actual direction. You are a gate 2, aren't you?
I do have gate 2, yeah.
Crazy nut. And it's in a defined center. So boom. Yeah. Well, I bring a rhythm.
Yay,
rhythm.
rhythm.
You and I both have 46.
Yeah. Well, we got 2 vessels of love guiding the show.
So the serendipity becomes us. And we don't even have to know. It'll show up. You and I have a tantra in this show. An exalted thing that seeks beauty, Moni. This word, the living demonstration of that. Oh my God.
We did it. Look at us.
Yeah. So I feel really good.
Yeah.
I hope people got plenty out of that and have lots of questions. We keep this obviously around forever. We just documented the Tantra.
Yeah, I love that we like record it and we put it out there. We got a
Yeah.
comment from Jonathan that was really nice. Thank you guys for providing this resource on YouTube. We need it. Well, you're welcome, and thank you for telling us, because it means a lot when we hear compliments and stuff.
Jonathan, thank you very much, bro. Love you to death, man. Ask more stuff. And thank you for being here, bro.
Absolutely. There's your Insta info for anyone who wants it. And then we also have your email. So DannyG@DannyGuru.com. Insta is Danny Guru HD is
Yeah,
the title. So book a session, reach out, comment, ask questions, hit like and subscribe. Do us a favor, and we'll see you next week. So thank you, Danny. Thank you to everyone, and catch you next
Thank
time.
you, Moni. Much love, everyone. Have a good night.